Hey guys, welcome to part 1 of our Game of the Year Awards discussion. So as you may already picked up on, we're doing things a little bit differently this year because 2017 was such a great year for games, we're doing a lot more awards. So instead of just doing our top 3, we're actually doing top 5 this time, and beyond that, we're actually doing individual category rewards, or awards I should say. So in part 1, we're going to focus only on our category awards, and in part 2, we'll be doing our top 5 games of the year. So with that out of the way, let's get to our first category, being Best New Character of 2017, and Derek, you want to take it away?
Yeah, I'll take it away, and I think we're doing a runner-up as well as our main one, so just as a quick runner-up, because we don't want to spend too much time on this, because we're probably going to go pretty long on this one anyway, so we'll keep it relatively shorter. For my runner-up, I gotta give it to Rapid Peach. There's something about, like, a lot of people, like, I was part of Roger Base's whole end of the year best of discussion, and a lot of people were giving one, so I was thinking, I can't really give it to Cappy, because Cappy's cool and all, but I was trying to think, I was like, he didn't really have much of a personality. He didn't really do much other than what he allowed Mario to do, and that's not really all that different from anything else.
He's the Luma of Mario Odyssey. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
On the other hand, Rapid Peach was a great character, and kind of just really, like, everybody talked about her. She was funny and just so off the wall, and really encapsulated what was so wonderfully weird about Mario plus Rabbids. So that's why she's my runner-up, but not my actual one. My actual best new character is Makoto from Persona 5, who I'm pretty sure neither of you have any familiarity with. The best way I can describe it is, imagine a character who is so defined by rules all around her. She follows them all in order to basically make people accept her. That's her way. Like, she doesn't follow these rules, she feels like she's nothing. And when she finally breaks away from that and gets her persona, it is one of the coolest, most badass moments. It's one of those things for anybody who's ever been in that situation to go, like, heck yeah, like, just really get into it. And that happened for me, and that just sort of cemented her as such a great new character for 2017. And Persona always has some great characters, but I think Makoto really stands out for me.
How about you, Ash? What are your top 2?
Well, I love that we're leading with this category, because already I'm kind of cheating here, or I have like a bit of, and you've called me a wild card in these discussions, Andre, so I'm going to live up to that name. My runner-up for Best New Character, it's kind of cheating, but it's 16-year-old Chloe Price from Life is Strange Before the Storm. And I say that's cheating because Chloe is not a 2017 character. Life is Strange came out, I believe, either 2015 or 2016, but this is the younger version of her, so I'm getting her in there anyway. And I think Chloe's an awesome character. I love Life is Strange. It's really cool seeing everything that kind of leads to who she becomes in the main game. So I'll keep it quick, but those of you who've played Life is Strange know how awesome Chloe is, and that is completely carried over to her 16-year-old version in this year's Before the Storm. But my favorite new character of 2017 is Aloy from Horizon Zero Dawn. I just love this character. I love everything about her. I love her visual design. You know, her personality is great. She just means to do well. You know, I'm hoping a sequel will maybe explore, you know, aspects of her actual personality more, but I just love what she represents. She's got a cool design. She's, you know, super capable, and you can tell with Horizon, you can tell with Aloy especially, that Guerrilla Games didn't set out to write a good female character with her. They just set out to write a good character, a good human character, and it just happened to be this badass redhead female. So I gotta give it up to Aloy. She is my favorite new character of 2017.
Isn't Chloe voiced by Ashley Birch in the original?
She is.
Are we sure you're just not an Ashley Birch?
I know, it's funny. I was actually going to bring that up. It's funny. Well, here's what's funny about that is that, yes, Chloe is voiced by Ashley Birch,
but not in
Aloy,
the Storm.
But not in Before the Storm. So they actually got somebody else due to the I think the SAG-AFTRA strike. So They are actually two different actresses in this case. But yeah, they both happen to be Ashley Birch characters, which is strange, but I'm rolling with it.
Life is strange.
Life is strange, right? Yeah.
Well played. Alright, so my 2 characters are, so the runner-up is, this one's kind of cheating too, Ash, actually. It's Pauline from Mario Odyssey.
Wow.
I feel like
Nice.
she might as well just be a new character the way they portrayed her in this game, actually being a worthwhile addition this time. I just loved everything they did with her in Super Mario Odyssey. I love the song she sings, I love her presence in the game, I like how she's the mayor now of New Donk City. Great character design, just everything about her in Mario Odyssey I love, so that's why she's the runner-up. My actual new character of the year, my favorite character of the year though, that's actually new, would be Rivali from Breath of the Wild. Even though in the grand scheme of things, I don't think he stands out that much. Like, on on an actual character basis, but I liked what he added to Zelda. He actually felt like one of the more human characters, even though he's a bird. and I liked how he felt more grounded, even though he flies, compared
You're
to.
pulling your argument apart here, Andre.
I'm undermining everything I'm saying about him, but no, I mean, I just liked he. I don't know, I just liked his presence in the game. Like, he felt like an actual character to me, as opposed to a lot of the times in Zelda where they're kind of written in a very, like, more flowery type way, I feel like, that makes them harder to relate to, or at least harder for me to relate to. Rivali, though, I'm like, man, I get you. I appreciate you. So that's why he's my best new character of 2017.
It's funny, you say your runner-up was cheating with Pauline. I actually think Rivali is cheating more, because Rivali has been in plenty of other games besides Breath of the Wild, like Star Fox 2, Star Fox 64.
That's exactly, yep. I mean, you're right. I can't disagree with that. I can't disagree with that.
Having that sort of archetype in Zelda is pretty refreshing, because usually everybody loves Link right away, or else they're a little antagonistic, but then they love him. Rivali never comes around on Link.
Yeah, he really doesn't.
True.
He's a douchebag to the end, yeah.
And I agree with Andre. I like that aspect of him. He is my favorite of the champions as well. And again, I like this competition. I almost do kind of wish there was a boss fight with Rivali, so you can compare strengths and whatnot, but no well.
Also, part of the reason I liked him too was I thought his voice acting was some of the strongest in the game. So like even every time he says Rivali's Gale is ready to go or whatever, I'm like, that sounds really good. I like that. All right,
it's like it makes you want to use it.
Yeah, it does, exactly. All right, moving on to our next category, being the game I've sunk the most time into this year. So this one's, less subjective, more objective, because we can actually measure this one. I guess we'll just go in the same order, unless someone else wants to switch it up. But Derek, what was your most played game this year, or two played games?
Yeah, runner-up would be Breath of the Wild at 135 hours. I sunk a ton of time into this game between chasing down all the shrines, not all the Korok Siege, just all the shrines. Did all that, and then of course you got even more gameplay in there thanks to the 2 DLC packs we did and the little bit of extra content you got with that. And it was fun to play it. Like, I wanted to play that game as much as possible, and I achieved that. I was very happy with it. The game I sunk the most time into, though, it should be no surprise to anyone, Xenoblade Chronicles 2.
I mean, that's kind of surprising, given how little time you had with the game.
Yeah,
I know. Here's the weird thing. There's two things. I don't know how much time I've exactly spent with the game, because my timer in-game got screwed up. Because, for whatever reason, I noticed sometimes where I put the game in sleep mode, and the timer would keep going.
That's
and
weird.
it happened more recently, and I saw like, man, there's another 20 extra hours in here. So I had to go based off of the internal, like Nintendo's way, where it's not even that accurate, but it's listing me at 150 hours. So I'd say 150 to 160 hours. Now, granted, a lot of that is rare blade hunting, as many of you saw me on Twitter complaining about having to just go through the process. But even beyond that, before I really cracked down on trying to get the last of those rare blades, I was doing side quests, I was doing fighting unique monsters, I was filling out the affinity chart for all of my different rare blades that I had gotten, and there's still plenty more of that to do. Like, I'm not kidding when I said there's easily 200 hours of gameplay in this game, and I'm sort of at that point. It's like, I finally did all the rare blades videos. Should I keep going and try to just, fill out all the affinity charts for all the characters and just keep going with the game,
Right.
Yeah. I actually have the same problem. I have a bad habit of sometimes leaving games on for a little bit or forgetting to put my systems in sleep mode. So I'll get, like you said, Derek, I'll get those extra hours added to the clock, so it's kind of hard to tell. So my runner-up is either going to be Super Mario Odyssey or Horizon Zero Dawn, depending, because I don't really know exactly how many times I left both on, but they're both somewhere in the realm of 80 to 90 hours. So I wasn't sure exactly which one is the clear winner, but I played both Mario and Horizon for about 80 to 90 hours, which, especially for Mario, that felt pretty appropriate, because I did 100% Mario Odyssey. I got all 999 moons, for basically. So, and then I basically played Horizon as much as I wanted to, except for the DLC. So I expect that number to balloon by 15 to 20 hours when I finally do play the Frozen Wilds. But my winner for a game I've sunk most time into is easily Breath of the Wild. It's by quite a large margin. After it, when I finished the game, I was at about 140 hours, and that was getting all 120 shrines, about 200 Korok seeds, and basically exploring the hell out of the world. And then I got about 20 hours added onto that recently by playing both Trial of the Sword and Champion's Ballad all at once, so which is a pretty good chunk. So I'm sitting at around 170-ish hours, 160 hours for Breath of the Wild, so that is my obvious winner for the game I've played the most this year.
Huh. I actually thought it would be higher than that, Ash.
For Zelda?
Yeah.
Like 200 hours, really?
Yeah, thought it'd be a little bit higher.
Wow, no, I'm sitting at
impressed.
170 or so, maybe 160 to 170.
All right, well, you better buckle up then for my number one. So,
okay.
boy.
All right.
This ought to be good.
Okay, so first up, so I actually have two different runner-ups here for two reasons, for I guess two reasons I'll give, or a reason, whatever. The objective runner-up is Zelda Breath of the Wild with 205 hours. That's the one I had the second most time put into.
Jesus.
But that game also came out almost a year ago at this point, 9 months ago. So I want to give credit to what I feel like would be my subjective game I spent the most time with, given the smaller amount of window I've had with that being Stardew Valley at 75 hours. And I'm going to take this opportunity real quick to mention that we're also allowing any game that, even if it came out in the past year, for a different console, if it came to the Switch for the first time this year, which any game coming to the Switch would have to be, those are eligible for any of our awards, including our top 5. So yeah, so Stardew Valley is 75 hours, but I've only been playing that for the past month or two. So that's what I'll consider my true runner-up. The actual game that I spent the most time with this year, though, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, with over 220 hours, which is
Holy
a game
crap.
I already spent an absurd amount of time with on the Wii U. It's effectively still the same game, but I assure you I did not spend most of the time in battle mode. It was still in racing. So yeah, that kind of surprised even me that I spent that much time. I just really like Mario Kart 8 apparently.
God, I guess so.
Apparently.
I mean, I'm actually really shocked that you played that much Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, considering it's a new version of a game that you already played hundreds of hours of on Wii U.
Yeah. I mean, I
That's
think
amazing.
I barely touched Mario Kart 8 Deluxe.
I think a big part of it is the timing. It came out when there was a bit of a lull for the Switch. I had already finished up Zelda, especially because I had Zelda, a couple weeks before most people. So by the time it actually launched, I was largely done with it. So then I just had Mario Kart to focus on, and I already enjoyed that game, so I just kept playing it over and over and over, and yeah, I had a blast with it still, so yeah.
All right.
Yeah, that's awesome.
All right, moving on. We have Best DLC of 2017. Derek, take it away.
Cool. Well, this was actually a little tricky for me because I didn't get that much DLC, but then I also realized that, updates and stuff, that also counts as DLC.
Correct,
So that helped, broadened it out a little bit. But for my runner-up, I only give it a like, but I do think Breath of the Wild, it was the second best DLC I encountered this year. It added to it. It gave me a lot more time to play it. It had a few new story cutscenes and whatnot. There were some new challenges to it. Like, it felt meaty, and I appreciate that as DLC. But my best, and this is probably going to be a shock to a lot of people, gotta give it to Super Bomberman R.
That's a good one. That's a really good one.
Because, and the reason I give it to that one, for the biggest reason is that the DLC they released for it, all free by the way, significantly improved the game. It is a better game now than it was when it first launched and when I first played it. Like this, it is a fantastic Bomberman game, and really, if you haven't even tried it yet, something you really should pick up and play. It is a great game, and they fixed a lot of problems with it, made things a lot smoother, and really surprising by Konami just how much they supported this game and how much they improved upon it, all for free. It was great.
Yeah, that's a great point. I actually had completely forgotten about that, so that's a great... Yeah, I mean, I didn't get to play a lot of Bomberman myself, but they really, especially considering it's Konami, I'm shocked that they, have... Just given what Konami's doing these days, it's really surprising that they have not only supported Super Bomberman R, but also, gotten bombers based on some of their other legacy characters, like Vic Viper and... Simon Belmont. That is weird to see Konami doing that these days, but it was really cool. I completely agree.
I'm gonna have to think about biggest surprise of the year category coming up now. Just the fact that Konami is supporting a game.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, my runner-up actually is the same as yours, Derek, which is the expansion pass for Breath of the Wild. I was actually a little surprised myself when I came to this conclusion, but I have to, just from a sheer value standpoint, it added 20 to 30 hours to my game clock, and I had a great time. I did die at the last room of the Advanced Trials of Trial of the Sword, and that made me want to throw my game out the window. However, the fact that I was able to add so many legitimate gameplay hours to the game for not a whole lot of money, and I actually had a good time. It didn't really feel like filler. You know, I had a good time revisiting Breath of the Wild with the expansion pass, and that was what it was meant to do. So, you know, I don't love everything in the individual DLC packs, but taken as a whole, it added a lot of value to the game for me, so I gotta give that to my runner-up. But my favorite DLC of the year, and correct me if I'm wrong if you guys don't think this counts, is Shovel Knight Spectre of Torment, which is technically, in my eyes, a DLC campaign. So...
Yeah, I'd allow it.
Yeah, so if that counts, it's gotta be Spectre of Torment, because that is one of the best platformers I've played this year, in a year full of fantastic platformers. And, you know, it was almost easy to forget about, because Spectre of Torment came out along with the Switch's launch way back in March, so it was easy to kind of forget about it with just the blitz of the Switch's launch, but it is a first-rate platformer, and potentially possibly the best of the Shovel Knight series. But personally, I think I might give it to the original campaign still, but Spectre of Torment is just as good in many ways, so I gotta give it to that.
Yeah, with how much you like Shovel Knight, that is not surprising to me.
Exactly.
With your DLC.
Yeah.
Alright, so for me, my runner-up is interesting, because it's for a game that I've barely taken advantage of the DLC, but I appreciate what it's doing, and that is ARMS. This is a game I fully enjoyed when it came out, but I kind of fell off the wagon and haven't really gone back into it. But I really do appreciate what they're doing with that game, supporting it very much like they did Splatoon. But I feel like almost stronger, at least compared to Splatoon 2, with them coming with new characters and stages pretty consistently, and we just announced a new one, in fact, coming soon. So yeah, I just want to give them credit for that. Like, I love what they're doing there with the ARM support for free. That is keeping, that is keeping the small community still playing engaged at least. But again, it didn't pull me back, so it is kind of a weird one. Now, my actual winner for this category might be a little bit weirder, because I'm giving it to a game that I famously complained about quite a bit in terms of the DLC, being Zelda Breath of the Wild's DLC pack. I still have issues with it. I mean, I still have major problems with it, but I did ultimately enjoy it, and it did pull me back for another 10 or so hours. And though I may have fundamental issues with it, I can't deny that I enjoyed it. I enjoyed what it was, especially for the DLC pack too. So, yeah, the shrines were fun. I did like the small story-esque cutscenes they added. I actually feel like those are probably the strongest in the game. So, yeah, overall, that's my favorite DLC.
Yeah,
wow,
I mean, we both had it on ours as our runner-up, so I can totally see that, yeah.
I'm actually shocked of all three of us that you're the one who picked it as your favorite, Andre.
I mean, let it be shown that as loud and stuck in my ways as I can be, like, I'm not afraid to
shake the apple cart.
Exactly.
And it is interesting that none of us picked Splatoon 2 either. And you even mentioned that. But I think the fact of the matter is that a lot of Splatoon 2's DLC is bringing back stuff from the original game. We do get new stages and whatnot, but there's something about this DLC is just not pulling me in the same way that the originals did.
That is interesting. Well, maybe they'll tie into our next category, being most disappointing game of 2017. Derek, you want to start us off here?
My runner-up this one's weird. This one, I also have a bit of a cheat here, but we're going to go for it. But between my runner-up and my actual one, my runner-up is Yooka-Laylee. It is.
Oh, that's a good one.
I had a feeling it would be.
I know it's been improved greatly with their content patch and fixing a lot of the issues and whatnot. I know the Switch version, according to Ash, is even markedly improved beyond the other consoles. Like, I know that they've worked on this game, but at the time of release, when I first played it on PC, this game was a mess for me. Nothing about it really clicked. I would get these sparks of moments where I see what they're trying to do with it, and then it would just get yanked out from under me and just be a mess where I'm just wandering around trying to figure out what I needed to do to get everything, and it just, the lack of communication just killed that game for me. And granted, it might be better, but I feel like I have fundamental issues with it that I still might not enjoy it as much as other people. Again, as I always say, if you guys enjoy this, great, just not for me. But my actual disappointing game, and this is why it's a bit of a cheat, Mario Party The Top 100, which I've not played, but on pure concept alone, the fact that this is on 3DS and the fact that, in my mind, they killed the concept. They had this great idea, that's something that people had wanted for a long time, is taking all these great things about past Mario games and smushing them together into one like celebration of the series, and Mario Party the Top 100 does that without any of the boards or any of the stuff that makes these games great and memorable and fun. It's just the games. And I've watched, while I did not play it myself, I did watch Peanut Butter Gamer play it on his gameplay channel, and just watching the energy deflate from both him and his friend, just like, it was like, yep, that looks about right. Like, they were like, I'm excited for this is a cool concept, and by the end it's like, God, this game sucks. And it was just a funny, it was just like, it really shows it. And again, the reason I hate it so much is because they killed the concept now. They can't do this on another one. They're not so soon. We'll have to wait another 10 years, maybe 5 years.
No.
To get this idea again.
You just have to wait for Mario Party 100, which will probably not be that far from now. So
Yeah.
There you
Right.
go.
Hey, Ash, do you mind if I jump ahead of you here, because I feel
No.
like the segue? Okay, awesome.
Go for
So you actually made me fix my list real quick here, Derek, because I completely forgot
okay.
ukulele, so I'm kind of spoiling it already. But I want to go off Mario Party Top 100, because that was originally my runner-up for most disappointing game. Because, yeah, I agree, it kind of ruins the concept. On the other hand, it's not really a real runner-up, because, of course, oh god, what's the company that makes these games now?
I don't know.
I remember.
what these are.
The company that makes Mario Party now, I mean, they only make garbage games. Between
Wow.
Wii U Party or whatever, and all the Mario Parties, since, basically. Like, none of them are good, so I never had any real expectations for this game. I hoped, I had a small glimmer of hope, even though I knew deep down there was no way it could be good, and sure enough, it's not good. I mean, it's not actively terrible. It's just not.
No, it's not bad.
Yeah,
it's just not what we want.
It's just not what we want. Yeah, it's not what it should be. So that's why it's Pseudo was my original runner-up. Since then, though, because you totally reminded me of a game that I guess I'll just skip ahead. No, I can't skip ahead. So, all right, moving on to my actual runner-up now, Splatoon 2. I don't think it's a bad game. I think it's far more worthy of the moniker it got that a lot of people would argue against, saying it's just Splatoon 1 remade of Splatoon. A lot of people would say it's like an enhanced version of Splatoon. I totally disagree with that. I think it's definitely worthy of Splatoon 2 name. At the same time, I love Splatoon 1. Splatoon 2 didn't quite do it for me. It did feel like it felt too similar to the original. So while I think it's worthy of being sequel status, it also meant that the amount of time I want to spend with it was far less, because I'd already played most of that. I experienced the core gameplay already. So what once was super fresh was now kind of pedestrian.
I kind of agree. Like, I love
fair.
Splatoon 2. I stand by my review. I love this game. It is good. It just hasn't held me in the same way that the original Splatoon did. Mm-hmm. At this point, Splatoon 2 is almost any other multiplayer game for me, where I play it for a little bit, enjoy it, and then move on.
Yeah.
And I didn't do that with the original Splatoon. That's what made it so special to me, and I was really hoping Splatoon 2 would be able to do that. And when I was playing with other early reviewers for the game, it was a lot of fun, like having that equal skill level. But then all the people that had been playing the original came in and just trounced me, and I can't get over that skill ceiling with the limited amount of time I get to play. Mm-hmm. So I get where you're coming from.
I will give
stand by my review.
I will give props to Salmon Run. That was a really fun mode. I wish the rest of the game had been as fresh as that was.
I do like how you've worked fresh into your conversation twice now. That's great. But,
I mean, it is a defining element of Splatoon, right? So
yeah, it really is.
I mean, it's kind of ironic that Splatoon 2 really isn't fresh.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's kind of like, just kind of endemic to sequels in general sometimes, though, is that, the first one establishes something, and then the second one takes that something and refines it, builds on top of it, smooths it out. And I guess that's kind of what we're seeing with Splatoon 2. And I totally see what you guys are saying about that. I personally didn't feel disappointed by it, because unlike you guys, I didn't stick with Splatoon 1 multiplayer that long either, just because I don't have time to play that many recurring multiplayer games going forward, I mean, Smash is really the one that I devote myself to. So I wasn't disappointed, only because I had to move on anyway.
Does your wife know you devote yourself to Smash?
Oh, absolutely. There's no way she couldn't possibly.
This is a polyamorous relationship.
Yeah,
You got to
yeah.
understand that.
All right. Hold on.
That's right.
I have my actual. Sorry,
Yes,
that was
that's
a long one. My actual most disappointing game, which will be a quick one actually, because Derek covered it. Ukulele. It was so disappointing. I had completely forgotten about it. In fact, that game just let me down on every front. I mean, I hate ragging on it so much, because it did come from a passionate team, a smaller team. I mean, it's not fair to expect AAA efforts from a smaller, from a smaller developer. Like, we're not talking classic Rare size here, or obviously Mario Odyssey size teams dealing with this game. At the same time, I can't let that affect my, that doesn't affect my enjoyment of the game. And straight up, I didn't like it. It wasn't fun. I felt like it missed a lot of the magic of the original game. The controls I found were clunky. The level's too big, with not enough to do. And, especially in a Mario Odyssey world now, like, there's no reason I'd ever have to play Yooka-Laylee. So I hope the developers, if they ever make a sequel, like, that they've learned from this and can make one closer in style to the original Banjo-Kazooie. But yeah, as is Yooka-Laylee, like, from the Kickstarter that I was so hyped for originally, it just did not deliver.
And in retrospect, I'm trying to figure out why they tried to...
Sorry, never mind. I was thinking, retrospect, no, but that doesn't work at all.
Yeah, it's not Retro
No,
Studios.
it's not Retro.
Yeah.
It kind of works, though, because I was going to talk about the fact that they included cart levels when that wasn't Banjo-Kazooie's thing. That was
Right.
Donkey Kong's thing. I'm
Hey,
still
there we
trying
go.
to figure out why they did
Oh,
it.
that
Yeah, exactly.
karting minigame. Yeah, I mean...
Yeah. And
that's-
Carto is the worst part of that.
Oh,
One of the worst parts.
Kartos is easily the worst part of that whole game. Like Kartos and maybe Rextro. But and that's like, I have a slightly complex relationship with this game. I mean, I was disappointed by it too, but not to the degree that you guys have been, obviously. And after all said and done, I did finish the game, and I played all the different versions of it for the review and the review follow-up. And, initially I was pretty disappointed by the technical issues, but, I ended up liking it fine. It's not an amazing game by any means, but I ended up liking it fine. So even though I was disappointed by it to a degree, I wasn't as disappointed as I am in these two games I'm about to mention.
Well, hold on real quick.
Yeah.
Is Liked It just find a new official GameXplain review score?
Yeah.
There you
Well,
go.
I mean, but I did. I liked it. It's just, but I mean, I wouldn't obviously recommend it before like Mario
Right.
Odyssey or something. Never. But I also wouldn't. Probably like Andre, you would probably tell people to steer clear, and whereas I would be like, hey, no, I think this is fine. Like it plays well on Switch, and if you're looking for another not nearly as good 3D platformer, but one that's still passable and fine and fun to play, then Yooka-Laylee. I just didn't dislike it as much as you guys seem to have, but I totally get where you're coming from. But that's because I have two more games that disappointed me more than that. And my runner-up for that is going to be Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite. And I want to make it very clear that it's not because of the game itself. I think the gameplay is fantastic. Unfortunately, Capcom and Marvel did everything they could in the marketing and the lead-up to release to just... to really saddle it with a bunch of baggage that it didn't need. And it hasn't really been able to rise above. Unfortunately, the game is so fun. I love watching it at a high-level play. But the roster is really weak, even though it's got X and Sigma, which I love. The roster's super weak. The marketing hasn't been very good. The DLC is so overpriced. Like, holy crap. The new characters and the new stages and costumes, they are so overpriced. And unfortunately, MVC Infinite is an example of a great game, gameplay-wise, that was just saddled with too much other crap. And it hasn't been able to rise above that yet. So we'll see if it does, but I'm just disappointed.
Capcom had only waited a year. They could have got those X-Men characters.
I know, exactly. Now that we can get the X-Men characters everybody wants, and I just wish that... I hope that MVC Infinite can still rise above.
We just have to
and
bow
become
to our
better,
Disney
but-
masters.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, the lack of MVC's ability to take off kind of has made it my second most disappointing game of the year, but my most disappointing game of the year is Sonic Forces. And that's not because it is a terrible dumpster fire of a game. It's not. It's just very meh, completely forgettable, and not at all what I or other Sonic fans were hoping for from the next big outing for modern Sonic. I think we were all hoping for a new, another game that was as good as Sonic Generations or Sonic Colors. We didn't get it. It's not even close, and it really, like, Sonic, they've somehow taken the last 6 years to make a game that is in every way worse than a game they released in 2011. So... it's unfortunate, and it's not the worst game by any means, but it is easily my most disappointing game of the year.
Yeah, that's a good one. I mean, you're a big Sonic fan, so that's...
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
totally understand that.
And the thing is, I didn't have any expectations for it, but it is a disappointing game because, again, when first thing they did was incite the fact that just from the guys who worked on Sonic Colors and Sonic Generations, that
Yeah.
you start expecting a certain pedigree. And you're right, when they can't even match the daytime levels of Sonic Unleashed,
You have a
you're doing
problem.
something wrong here.
Yeah, and it's like, how did you already made what worked? Like, you have a template for it. How did you take the last 6 years and make something worse? That blows my mind.
Every time the stage feels like it's ramping up to something, it
Yeah,
ends.
exactly. Like, the levels are super short, and I think there's something to that. Like, the level designers for Forces were completely new. Like, they weren't from Colors or Generations. So they got new guys. So, I mean, there's a certain truth from the team that brought you Sonic Colors and Sonic Generations, but it's not completely true. And you can tell that where that diverges is where the quality differential, I think, comes into Sonic Forces, because it's just straight up. It says that, but it's not anywhere near as good as those games. So, unfortunately, it's just a big disappointment.
I think the most disappointing element of that too is not only was it writing on the, not only were they marketing as like the next thing from Sonic Team or whatever, but also how they connected it to Sonic Mania. Like that's disappointing too.
Yeah.
Like,
I know.
It like retroactively tarnishes Sonic Mania a little bit with having that connection.
I know, and I wish, I don't know why they felt like they had to do that, but I mean, maybe it was Sonic Team thinking, well, everyone's probably going to like Sonic Mania a lot more, so let's just connect our game to any way we can to Sonic Mania.
Yeah. Well, on that note, let's head to our biggest surprise. If you don't mind, Derek, I'm going to hop into this one first. Because my runner-up for this is actually Sonic Mania. That's actually, it might be the first 2D Sonic game I've actually ever finished. So I actually enjoyed it. I had fun playing through it. I don't think it's quite as amazing as both of you probably do, but I thought it was good. I enjoyed it. And the fact that I actually finished it, is a tribute to that. So, yeah, I think Sonic Mania surprised me with how good it was. My actual biggest surprise, though, is Mario and Rabbids Kingdom Battle. That game really came out of nowhere, including the leaks. Like, really, who expected that? And a lot of people didn't expect it to amount to anything. And while I was always hopeful, it's like, there's an equal chance of this being something like really not a surprise or a complete garbage fire. And luckily, it turned out to be the former. It was a really solid game. It took Mario, combined with the humor of the Rabbids, and then added in XCOM style gameplay, which somehow all came together to create a really fun, surprising game. And yeah, I had a blast with it. So that was by far my biggest surprise. But it's a game that on paper it shouldn't even exist.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, honestly, it really is.
I mean, that I have to agree with you because Mario plus Rabbids was my runner-up. It is like we all had the rumors, and it's just like you hear it, it's like, oh god, because the first thing you hear about I think of when I hear Rabbids is the scream. So I'm like, oh god, they're gonna fall back to that stupid scream all the time, and it's gonna be just kind of annoying. But it's like, all right, we'll see what happens. But really, this is what Mario teams up with for his first like big crossover game that's not a sports title. Rabbids.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was just like, okay, but then you finally saw the gameplay, and you're like, okay, that kind of looks fun. And then you only had to wait a month to actually play it, and it was like, okay, this is really fun. This is really enjoyable. And they refined the Rabbids' humor so much where they actually were funny. They actually did make me chuckle quite a few times. And just based on my best new character, I obviously loved Rabbid Peach and what she brought to the table with this whole game. So yeah, I completely agree, and it worked out. Which other big surprise, of course, is that how well it sold. Like, people like saw the craziness of this, but heard how good it was, checked it out, and also really enjoyed it too. Like, somehow or another, this ended up being a big hit for Ubisoft. So that's great to see.
Yep.
But as for my actual biggest surprise of the year, Resident Evil 7.
Yeah, that's a good one.
I was excited for it when they announced it, but I wasn't sure about the direction they were going. I felt like they were just trying to ape PT. That's what it really felt like to me. But I mean, it was great to have a replacement for PT in that bit, but it was also like, it's Resident Evil. I don't know if who knows if it'll actually do that, especially when Resident Evil 6 was not good at all. Like, it seems like every three main games, Resident Evil wears out the style of gameplay for Capcom. Wears out the style of gaplay for Resident Evil. So by the third game of this style, Resident Evil 9, we'll be tired of it. Yeah, Resident Evil 9 might not be so good. But as for Resident Evil 7, I streamed the whole thing, and that was so much fun to just like actually have these scary moments and actually feel tense, and then some really great inventive boss battles that very tight corridors, challenging. And the thing was, I was really worried. It's like, okay, this is Resident Evil, but it doesn't feel like Resident Evil. As you play through the game, it totally feels like Resident Evil, and I appreciate that so much. So I'm excited for what they do next, and I think this is. I'm still not sure if it surpasses Resident Evil 4 for me, but it's definitely up there. It's probably at the very least my second favorite Resident Evil game now. And
wow, nice.
I just enjoyed the hell out of it.
All right.
And I know it scared the hell out of Andre because he didn't actually finish it.
I mean, that's
Not in VR.
Yeah, I was playing in VR too. Like I heard I should get the full experience, but it was too much of the full experience because that is a game.
I would love to replay with that.
It is a game I do want to go back and play through. That's the only reason it's not, spoiler, it's not on any of my lists here. I didn't play enough of it. I got too scared in VR to finish it. So it's a game I wanted to play more of. Yeah, so, maybe I'll talk about, maybe when I go back and finish it, I'll give it its due in the future. But yeah, but for now, I like the fact that Resident Evil seems to be relevant again. It's been quite some time. Which is impressive considering how many devices Resident Evil 4 came to over the last 10 years.
Yeah.
I gotta say, you guys going first in this category has given me a bit of a crisis of conscience, because I'm like, I've been interpreting surprises like, what thing coming out surprised you, or, was there something specifically that surprised you about the way it was released, or was the game that you played just really surprised you with its quality? So, I initially had, I completely forgot about Mario & Rabbids, because I didn't get to play it myself, but of course, I was really surprised, just as you guys were, by how the fact, A, that it exists, and B, that it was so well received, and that an idea on paper that seemed to be so terrible on paper worked so well in practice. So I had completely forgot about Mario & Rabbids, but I can't use that as an excuse. So I think for my runner-up, I gotta go with Star Fox 2. And that is not because of the game itself, but because of how it was actually released. The fact that it was brought back from the from Nintendo's internal wherever they throw all their old half-finished games, whatever closet they got Star Fox 2 out of, they got it out of there and re-released it as a full game, a finished game on the SNES Classic Edition.
Yeah.
And not only that, but they did like a full website. They got the original Star Fox artist to come back and do some new character art. Like, they went all the way with promoting Star Fox 2 on the SNES Classic, and I just think, what a cool surprise. I mean, that was one of the biggest surprises I could think of this year. If not because of the game itself. The game itself is whatever, I guess, but the fact that it even came out at all just blows my mind. But my biggest surprise this year was SteamWorld Dig 2, just because it literally, for me, came out of nowhere. I never was into SteamWorld that much. Really didn't get into the series. I didn't play SteamWorld Dig 1. I kind of looked at it, and I heard it was procedurally generated. I'm like, oh, not my thing. I prefer having levels that are specifically designed, for those experiences. So I just kind of ignored the series. And then SteamWorld Dig 2 came out, and I did a Game & Watch of it. And it just got its hooks in me in a way that I absolutely was not expecting. And it was all I could play or think about until I finished it. And keep in mind, SteamWorld Dig 2 came out in the same month as a Metroid game. And it's another Metroid-type game, but Metroid Samus Returns isn't the best Metroid-esque game I played in September. That's got to go to SteamWorld Dig 2. So it surprised me in every possible way, in the best kind of surprise. It's just a phenomenal game that I could not put down until I was finished, but I wasn't expecting it at all. So that's got to be my biggest surprise of the year.
So you really dug it?
Yes. Yeah, you could say I really dug it.
I'm gonna hijack your number 2 and make it my number 1 now, retroactively, because Star Fox 2 was a gigantic surprise. I think it actually was a bigger surprise than Mario & Rabbids Kingdom Battle. So
yeah. You could have thinking about it because it's attached to the system.
Yeah, I mean, it's a bit of a weird one. So yeah, I agree. I never expected that game to come out. So the fact that it did, and the fact that it's still fun to me, is a surprise. So, all right. Moving on, best soundtrack of the year. Derek, you want to take it away?
Sure. For my runner-up, Persona 5. It is just, fantastic. Everybody's praised the music. The music for a lot of all the Persona games are just fantastic. I fell in love with the music game they had based on it. We got 2 more music games coming out, so I'm super excited for that. But Persona 5 totally lives up to that legacy. Just fantastic battle theme that people got really into and almost became its own sort of meme with the whole lyrics as part of it, and just got you really into everything as you were playing through the game. I really enjoyed it, but it still didn't quite edge out my number 1, my favorite of the year, which Xenoblade was, Xenoblade Chronicles 2. This is it is hard to beat that for me because there's just so much variety, all the different themes they had for each area, for night and day, all the fighting themes that you had, and there were so many different battle themes that you could enjoy, and a lot of them got you just really pumped up and just sold every scene and emotion and everything they were going for, and just really made it stand out so much. Like, I was so glad to just not have to stream it like I did the original Xenoblade and actually be able to enjoy the music and crank up the volume and probably annoy my neighbors and then just play through it that way. But yeah, Xenoblade Chronicles 2, fantastic soundtrack. Absolutely my favorite of the year.
Nice. I mean, it's hard to argue with that. Straight up, I did not get to play or finish Xenoblade Chronicles 2, Nier Automata, or Persona 5 this year, so those are not in my running.
I wish
unfortunately,
I got to chance to play Nier Automata.
Exactly. Like, so I just wanted to say that's why none of those games are, in my running for best soundtrack. So my runner-up for best soundtrack, it was almost Horizon, but then as I going into what I said earlier, I forgot that Spectre of Torment came out this year because it came out right around the Switch's launch. So actually, my true runner-up is Shovel Knight Spectre of Torment. And, I mean, God, Jake Kaufman, he does such an amazing job with chip music in general. He does so many different kinds, but he is particularly good at the Mega Man style of chiptune. And Spectre of Torment soundtrack is nothing if not just a Mega Man soundtrack. And he's so good at it. And the way he uses leitmotif and the way he weaves different character themes into, and uses them in ways you wouldn't expect, and melody lines. It's so good. I could talk about Spectre of Torment's soundtrack forever, all the cool little technical things, but you guys both know, I think you know what my winner for best soundtrack of the year is. And that,
Mega Man 11.
Right? Yeah, Mega Man 11, that one song we've heard. No, it of course has to be Sonic Mania. That soundtrack over-delivered in every conceivable way for me. I have been waiting for a soundtrack like that, like a Saturn-era 2D Sonic soundtrack for, like many other fans, like 20 years. And T. Lopes absolutely delivered on every front. He knocked it out of the park. Every bit of that soundtrack is incredible, whether it's like the remixed zone music from prior games like Chemical Plant and Green Hill or Oil Ocean, or if it's some of the completely new stuff like Press Garden, Titanic Monarch. There are so many incredible songs in this soundtrack, and it's one that I'm still listening to every day. So Sonic Mania wins it by a mile, and that is in a year of incredible soundtracks for games.
Yeah,
Studiopolis still stands out, I think.
So
which one?
Studiopolis.
Oh yeah, especially Studiopolis Act 2. That's like one of my favorite songs of the whole year. I love this soundtrack so much.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. I think it would for me it didn't resonate quite as deeply or anywhere close because I'm not a huge song fan. So I thought it was good. But I think, if you have that song connection, I can see why it would be more special. So,
sure.
I guess I'm not playing to do my own choices here. Runner-up, Mario Rabbids Kingdom Battle. I thought I had a really strong soundtrack, actually, from Grant Kirkhope. It's a little bit understated at first, but once you get deeper into the game, it starts kind of weaving its way into your mind, and there's some really catchy tunes in there that I really liked, and it added a little bit of a different flair to what we normally get from both Mario and Rabbids. It definitely had a Banjo-Kazooie-esque feel at times, and I thought it worked really well in Kingdom Battle. Beyond that, though, my number one, Super Mario Odyssey. This game,
nice.
The music was so good to me at points. It literally brought me to tears. In the Cascade Kingdom, again in New Donk City, with the whole Pauline sequence, the whole festival, and then I won't put any spoilers here, but during a final segment of the game, and all of it, I think, were largely tied to the music present in them. It's how it all came together. And even outside of that, I thought the music, outside of those moments, I thought the music was great for the most part across the board. Even if it was at times understated, how there were many points in the game where there'd be no music at all. You're just kind of exploring and nothing's going on. Kind of like Breath of the Wild. But yeah, the music that was here, I thought, for the most part, is really strong.
It's funny.
The fact that Mario had an actual song, and it was so good.
That's crazy. Yeah,
yeah.
I'm glad you brought that up. That's crazy that Mario had a song with lyrics. That's who expected that, and the fact that it was good, right? Because that's something Sonic's done for generations, so to speak, and oftentimes they aren't that great.
Well, that's a completely different style, too.
Yeah, people love their butt rock, but it's still, name any of the lyric songs from Forces and compare it to Jump Up Superstar. There's, no comparison.
Mm-hmm.
No, if we had, a category that was, best individual song, obviously there would be a couple of songs from Sonic Mania that I'd have to think about, but Jump Up Superstar would be up there, too. That is such a good song. It perfectly encapsulates the Super Mario Odyssey experience, in my opinion. And where it plays or I should say, the multiple places in the game that it plays, they're both incredibly effective and appropriate. And even though Mario Odyssey didn't make my top choices, it's really only because you kind of touched on this, Andre. The music that's there is phenomenal, but it does kind of take a an ambient approach sometimes, which I'm not always the biggest fan of. I think it worked in Breath of the Wild, but I wasn't as much of a fan of it in Odyssey. So that was, that kind of were a few points against it for me, but it's still a phenomenal soundtrack. And Bowser's Kingdom, oh my god, like Cascade Kingdom and Bowser's Kingdom, probably my favorite songs in the game, and that's probably my favorite Bowser's Kingdom song ever, or Bowser Castle song, whatever you want to say.
Yeah, that's a good one, and Cascade Kingdom, as you said, like, is a magical song to me. Like, it evokes a sense of adventure that they were going for in a game called Mario Odyssey. So.
Totally.
Yeah. Yeah, for me, the reason I didn't make it, there was just such good competition.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, and to be fair, as Ash touched on, like, we haven't played Xenoblade Chronicles 2 much, and I probably won't, because it's not quite my game. So.
Yeah, it's not really your game there, Andre.
And I didn't get to play Nier, so it's just like, it's so hard. There are so many games that had incredible music that we can't even, consider, because we didn't get a chance to play them.
All right, moving on to Best Visual Design. Derek, what do you think?
My runner-up might come across as a bit of a surprise. I'm not quite sure, but I fell in love with the visual design of Wonder Boy: The Dragon's Trap. That animated style, how they updated like this old Master System game to look as gorgeous as it is. Just these, I don't know, this like cartoon look that just looked phenomenal and just is great. And as I'm saying this, I'm like, oh crap, I forgot about a certain game, and now I feel awful.
I'm pretty sure I know which certain game you forgot about.
Yeah, exactly.
I just added my list right now.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like praising Wonder Boy. Let's just say
So
it
funny.
started with that and with this year, but I'm gonna have to push it off the list just a little bit because I haven't played it much. But come on, Cuphead is just that good.
Yeah.
And honestly, I think that might have to actually be my best visual design. I actually had for my listed here Persona 5, and I think I love how it really does like the animation and looks like you're in this world and what they do with it and this how stylized. I mean, it's so hard to actually decide between now whether it's Cuphead or no. I'm gonna stick with my guns. Cuphead is still runner up. Love the 1930s cartoon aesthetic. It is so wonderfully done. Not played it enough to see all of it though, but the little bits that I've seen, I love it to death. But Persona 5, its sense of style permeates everything, and that is why I have to give it the my best visual design, because people were like, the menus were getting used by people, like for everything else. Like people would put the menus on everything for like the battle system. That is a sign of like just great visual design, plus along with the character designs and the world they were doing, just how stylistic it looked. I think it had the overall just the best package of all the visual elements to it. But that's not to take away from anything of Cuphead, because from the moment I first saw that game, it looked amazing. So yeah, it has to be here.
Well, I'm gonna show off and brag and say that Cuphead was already my runner-up. I didn't need to add add anything into it. No, Cuphead. I mean, you guys have already said it all. I mean, what an astounding looking game. I need to play more of it. It's just a matter of having time to play it. But what I have played of it has floored me. Like we've never really quite had a game that so perfectly emulates that. I mean, it's basically like playing a 1940s cartoon. We've never had a game like that, to my mind. And it doesn't even just go halfway and like try to emulate that. No, it goes full tilt. I mean, it really is like playing an old school cartoon, and everything about it.
Stuff.
Yeah, like everything about it. The music is period appropriate, like just the way the characters are drawn, and they animate so well. It's just absolutely one of the most beautiful games I've ever laid eyes on. And there's nothing else like it. Still to this, I mean, I don't think there's ever been anything else like it. And there certainly isn't now. So
yeah, there might be something like Wonder Boy might be cartoon-like, but Cuphead is a cartoon.
Exactly. And I had a really hard time like going between my runner-up and my winner for this, because they both are deserving, frankly. And they're both deserving in the 2D and the 3D spaces. So if Cuphead is my winner in the 2D space, or the runner-up, whatever, my overall winner is Horizon Zero Dawn, which would be in the 3D space, because it may not have the most striking art style, but I think the art style looks really nice for the game. The visual design works very well for the kind of game it is, but just the technical level of the graphics they achieve in Horizon, whether you're playing on a regular PS4 or PS4 Pro, I have not played another game that consistently wowed me with its visuals every moment. I mean, the visuals do such a great job of transporting you into a post-apocalyptic Earth and making you really like I would find myself just like swinging the camera, looking at the beautiful landscape, and like having my imagination go wild. Like, man, what was, before I knew what happened in the story, like, man, how did civilization reach its downfall, and what happened, and how did things used to look, and you can see the remnants of human civilization or our civilization, and it's really, they sell the world so well. It's just a completely well-sold world. So Horizon has, in terms of the overall package, has the best visuals I've played of anything this year.
Oh man, so yeah, this is tough. So I'm gonna cheat. I have 2 runner-ups in this one.
I did the same thing.
Yeah, one of which is Horizon Zero Dawn, because I think the game is great looking. It is beautiful. Like, I think in general it's a great looking game, but it is kind of a great looking game in a kind of standard expected kind of way.
Sure.
So my other runner-up is Zelda Breath of the Wild, because I think when it comes to one particular aspect, being the vistas, I think it's unmatched. I don't think Horizon Zero Dawn gets close to Zelda when it comes to just being able to look out upon the world and just see everything. I think it's uniquely gorgeous to Zelda Breath of the Wild. However, I think Zelda falls short in almost every other way, which is why I think this is a tough one for me when it comes to the runner-ups. I'm giving it to both of them. I think Horizon Zero Dawn is overall the better-looking experience, but with Zelda, you see the vistas so often that I feel like it.
It is really kind of incredible how these two games fill in each other's gaps.
They really do.
It's really weird.
Yeah, they truly do, and I'll have more to say about that probably a bit later on. But number one, as I think we expected now, for me, it's Cuphead. That game is just so unique looking that on that alone, I really have to give it that. Like, it's so unique and charming, and it really, like, the art style they're going for, it perfectly captures that, like, 1920s style art. I know Derek said 30s, I think you said 40s, Ash, I'll go 20s here.
Yeah, whatever, either way.
Get the whole range.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Probably best to just go with Fleischer.
And I haven't even played it that much myself. I've only really played it at E3, and I do want to play it more. But it's a game you don't have to play to appreciate the art style of it. It just looks beautiful. So yeah, I have to give them credit. I mean, it's nuts that they had to hand draw all of that. Like,
yeah,
every frame. That's crazy. So,
and I actually do want to say really quick. You touched on something, Andre. I completely agree. Like, if I could also cheat and sneak another game in there, I mean, Breath of the Wild. And actually, you touched on Wonder Boy. That's also a good. I actually thought about that, Derek, but I really, Zelda Breath of the Wild, I don't want to make it seem like I think it's like an ugly game. No, it really...
Oh, no, God, no.
It is so impressive looking, and I mean, it only didn't make it because I picked Horizon and Cuphead. Like, Breath of the Wild really, even going back to the DLC, I found myself remembering how impressed I was by that game's visuals. Obviously it has some technical shortcomings, but it's a really great looking game, especially for how ambitious it is in terms of how huge the world is. So I gotta, give that a shout out as well.
Okay, so we actually went on so long in this discussion, we're gonna have to cut it off here, and we'll continue with part 2 very soon to the rest of our category awards. And then, of course, stay tuned for part 3 shortly thereafter with our top 5 games of the year overall for each of us. And with that, thanks for watching. Of course, stay tuned to GameXplain for lots more on our Game of the Year coverage, as well as our 2017 year in review, and what we're looking forward to in 2018. Thanks for watching, and catch you later. Bye.